1982, I was actually a soldier in the Israeli military. I had top secret classification, and I was a qualified mechanical draftsperson, which is why I was given this role. In that unit, there was only one person for that job, and that was me. So I had my own studio in the building upstairs with all the machinery and an unlimited budget to get whatever I needed in order to do my job. My boss, we heard that he was going up to Lebanon. Those plans This chapter happens to be really important to me. The whole book is, but this chapter is because in 1982, I was actually a soldier in the Israeli military. And a few months before the start of this invasion, I was moved from where I was to a new role in the central headquarters in Tel Aviv. The Israeli military has their headquarters underground in the center of Tel Aviv, and I worked for a unit that was above ground, and it was a top secret unit in the army whose job was to organize and coordinate all the training of the entire army in Israel, all the training exercises, and also all the logistics and all the supply for them, the weapons, the food, everything, and also coordination with the Navy and the Air Force. I had top secret classification to do this job. My role was minor, but central. I was the only, I studied mechanical or technical drafting in high school, and I was a qualified mechanical draftsperson, which is why I was given this role. In that unit, there was only one person for that job, and that was me. And the reason they needed somebody like me is because there were no computers back then. This is 1982. And the personal computers were just making their first steps. So there was nothing, you couldn't do anything online like they do today. All the drawing and things like that, graphic design, everything is done online. Back then it was all done by hand. So I had my own studio in the building upstairs with all the machinery and an unlimited budget to get whatever I needed in order to do my job. So I was important, but in the grand scheme of things, I was a cog in the sense that I didn't actually have any say in the policies. I just drew. I had to by hand to draw all the Gantt charts and the planning for all these exercises, and it was of course top secret. One day, and I was reporting directly, which is highly unusual for somebody of my rank. By that stage, I was a sergeant. I finished my service as a staff sergeant. My commanding officer was a lieutenant colonel. He was the deputy head of that particular unit. The general who ran it was a disgusting man. I'll never forget him. But my boss was very nice, and he came upstairs one day and says to me, "How good is your English?" And I happen to be pretty good in English at school. And I said, I'm good, actually. I can do English. I said, "Okay, here, you do this." And he gives me this plan to draw, which was unusual. It was different from anything else I've ever done. And I did it and gave it to him. And he changed into civilian clothing, which was highly irregular. And we heard that he was going up to Lebanon. Those plans were the planning for the training of the militias that committed the massacre in Sabra and Shatila. So I have a personal, minor, unimportant, but role in this. I was right there. During that invasion of Lebanon, the same commanding officer called us all into one of the offices because we didn't understand what was going on. You can be in the middle of the military and not understand anything. And I was only 18 and a half. And he tried to explain to us what was going on and what everybody was saying in Israel. And that does not appear in the chapter at all, which was fascinating. We were told in Israel, and the entire media was telling everyone that the reason for the invasion was because Israel was Ariel Sharon was trying to create a buffer zone of 40 kilometers from the border of Israel into Lebanon in order to protect the northern settlements or the northern cities of Israel from missile attacks from Lebanon. So that's what we were told. That was it. The chapter, of course, goes to a great deal more detail about what was really going on. One of the things that bothered me about this chapter is that I think if somebody only reads this for the first time, Israel's actions don't seem to make sense. Like, why would Israel do this? Why would Israel have an interest in killing civilians in a refugee camp? So unless you understand Israel's general genocidal aims, basically, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they want to do that? Israel allegedly did not kill directly those people, but it definitely presided over it, encouraged it, trained the people, and armed them as well and supplied them. My unit did that. So I think that it's very important to remember Israel's general aims, which is the complete extermination of the Palestinian people, removal of every last Palestinian from historic Palestine. What Israel's been doing over the decades is killing little bit by little bit by little bit. There's all sorts of other reasons too, like Rahul mentioned, instilling fear, all kinds of things like that. But that's you need to understand that every chance Israel has to, Ilan Pappé talks about it too, take revenge almost. It's as if Israel is taking vengeance, exacting vengeance over the Palestinians for what the Nazis did. And back in the day, back in the time, and he mentions it in the chapter as well, Begin was obsessed with Hitler. He was calling Arafat Hitler. He was calling the Palestinians Nazis. And this narrative still goes on today in Israel. When I say Israel is criminally insane, you better believe me. So what you see in the chapter is a striking picture of Israel's deceitfulness. We mentioned deceit last time, but it's absolutely clear in this chapter. Also, the way Israel does not cooperate with anybody, and also it's on its own path. And the other thing that's striking is the way that basically Israel does whatever it wants with the United States, and for some reason the United States just capitulates to Israel and just goes along with it, which is absolutely remarkable if you think about it.
Hi, and this is my wife, Alin. Today, a foreign government, Israel, operates the most powerful lobby in Congress. This is AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Through control of Congress, Israel demands and gets nearly $5 billion annually. No elected official dares criticize Israel for fear the Jewish lobby will accuse him of anti-Semitism, the kiss of death for any politician. The president also knows what Israel wants, Israel gets. To act otherwise is political suicide. The mass media, founded and controlled primarily by Jews, manipulates the spigot of information out of which heartland America drinks. The message of this contaminated source is, if you criticize Israel, you are anti-Semitic. Be safe, keep your head down, or you are fair game for being knocked off by the Zionist shooting gallery.
When I was in 1982, during that time, what people don't know is that Israel continued to stay in Lebanon in the south for a very long time after that. And my boyfriend at the time was fast-tracked through officers training, and he was in the Armored Corps. He became a tank commander very quickly and then commanded a unit of tanks. And I remember the stories of them killing people in the south of Lebanon. Other friends, a particularly good friend of mine was an officer in the Navy, and he was telling us how they were sitting in a warship in front of Beirut and bombing buildings, where people lived, basically. And I remember him saying, I'm glad that I'm inside the belly of the ship because I don't have to see what we're doing, but they still did it. We knew that soldiers were constantly looting and stealing also produce from the orchards in the south of Lebanon. They were all coming back with all kinds of stuff they were stealing from houses. These are the great Israeli soldiers that everybody is admiring so much. As a kid back at the time, I remember not really knowing what to think about it. I know what I think about it now. But if you wanted to hear about the stories of real soldiers and officers from the Israeli military, who are, by the way, still Zionist, I recommend the site Breaking the Silence. People don't know about it. I highly recommend it because these are whistleblowers, basically. Mm-hmm. Mind you, I'm not super in love with them, not because of what they did, but because I think they're more focused on their own redemption than on ending Israeli settler colonialism. They're still Zionists. But if you want evidence, if you want actual evidence that can actually be used in the International Criminal Court, it's all there for everybody to read. So it's called Breaking the Silence. They have their own site, which is in English and Hebrew and in Arabic as well. And they constantly collect testimonies and they talk about what's happening now as well. They actually know. So they're much better than that. There's also a book by, I think his name is Michael Grossman. It's an old one. It's called On Killing. On Killing is a book that where this fellow who used to be a lecturer in West Point in the United States and a psychologist, a military psychologist, is talking about how soldiers don't easily shoot their weapons. The reason that they had to develop remote warfare like drones is because soldiers are not actually good at killing. It's not that simple to take a person who lives a normal life, and mind you, all the soldiers in Israel who are killing now, who are in the Israeli military, are actually ordinary people. They're your neighbor, they're your teacher, they're your shopkeeper, they're your lawyer, they're your doctor, they're just ordinary people. It's not easy to take somebody who's a member of society where you're not allowed to kill. If you kill somebody on the street, you go to prison, to suddenly turn them into murderers. It's not a simple thing to do. So you're absolutely right, Anna-Marie. It's a complex thing. And Israeli soldiers in Israeli society are seriously psychologically damaged. And I can speak also not just as somebody who comes from there, but as a psychotherapist. The psychology of this is horrendous. Israel is not coming back from this. No matter what happens, they are not coming back from this. They're not the victims. They're not the victims.
Yeah.
It's because they are making themselves, they are causing it to themselves. They don't have to obey orders. I want to say something. We're not reading this book in order so that we can convince others. We're reading this book, or any book, so that we can feel confident in what we're doing. Has anybody ever wondered, if a crime is committed, why do you need courage to stand up for the victim? Isn't it what we're supposed to do? So again, to impress on everybody, we are studying this to give ourselves a sense of confidence that we are grounded in truth. Because to be good activists, we really need to be grounded in knowledge, but not for convincing others.